Yo, what's going on everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. Alright, so within Pokemon Go, Adventure Week has just wrapped up and I had a lot of thoughts regarding this event because I really do think that for what Niantic did with this year's Adventure Week, yeah, it was just a big mess. There was so many mistakes with this year's Adventure Week that I really do think this is something we need to discuss because Niantic is on a very bad trajectory right now. When it comes to the direction of Pokemon Go's in-game events, Niantic is going the absolute wrong way, and I do think this is something that we do need to point out. And it's not just me that has this opinion, there's a lot of chatter online within social media as well as within the Pokemon Go community itself regarding just how bad this year's Adventure Week was, and I do think it speaks to a major problem with Pokemon Go, specifically when it comes to the deterioration of the quality of their in-game events. It seems like for a majority of them, they're basically just a big cash grab where you're going to be required to hatch a bunch of eggs or you're gonna have to buy a special research ticket of some kind. And I do think that because of this, Niantic has lacked a lot of quality control when it comes to their in-game events. There just hasn't been anything exciting with them. And Adventure Week is a really good staple to go on because when it comes to Adventure Week every single year, it is typically one of the most hyped up events that we have. And the reason for that is because it often features very rare Pokemon that are relevant for both PvP and PvE content. I think probably the absolute best Adventure Week that we've ever had was the one that we had in 2022. I could be wrong, but I think that was the year where they introduced Shiny Cranidos and Shiny Shieldon, which definitely generated a lot of hype. They even had a limited research day to coincide with it, and I think because of that, it was probably the most hyped up Adventure Week that we had up until this point. But this year seems like it was the absolute worst Adventure Week that we've ever had, and the reasons for that are numerous. Like for example, a lot of players were pointing out that it was basically a massive Drillbur event because that was just such a common spawn. And don't get me wrong, Drillbur is a very highly valuable Pokemon considering that Exadrill is good for both PvE and PvP. But in general, I think they could have done a lot better. And the second and probably the most egregious reason why players were very unhappy with this year's Adventure Week event is because some of the most sought after and the most highly valuable Pokemon, like Amara and Tyrant and Cranidos, those were all locked behind 7-kilometer eggs. So if you really wanted the shinies of any of these Pokemon, you basically had to hatch an exorbitant amount of eggs. And a lot of players are really unhappy about that because that is essentially a pay-to-win model when it comes to Adventure Week and in-game events in general. Players do not like when it's a big egg hatching event, and for something like Adventure Week where they typically have some really good wild spawns, yeah, players were incredibly unhappy because a lot of the most sought after Pokemon were something you would have had to pay for. Now, I totally recognize that when it comes to Pokemon Go, it is essentially a resource management game. Like, if you want to hatch a whole bunch of eggs during a really good event, you need to save up those incubators. Basically, you need to do your gym battles every single day, save up those Pokecoins, and then you spend those Pokecoins on a really good egg hatching pack in the Pokeshop. And then, with the egg incubators that you get from that pack, you save them up for such an occasion like this Adventure Week event. But even so, it's all pure RNG. Even if you have hundreds of eggs hatched during this event, there is no guarantee that you would get the shiny that you want. And yeah, that is a huge problem because it is all pure RNG mechanics with some sort of paywall tied to them. Hatching eggs, realistically, will require you to spend money. There's really not an efficient free-to-play way for you to get a whole bunch of incubators, and because of that, a lot of players who did not stock up on incubators before this event, well, they likely forked up the cash in order to get those rare shinies. And I think this is a very bad model. It's a really bad trajectory for Niantic to go down because essentially with all their in-game events, they're quickly becoming a huge cash grab, and that's definitely not a popular way to go about it within the Pokemon Go community. A lot of players are just up in arms about this. And another problem that I, along with several other trainers, had with this event was of course the lack of fresh content. There wasn't any new spawns or new shinies that were tied to this year's Adventure Week, and because of that, a lot of players were incredibly frustrated that there really wasn't any reason for you to go out and play. Like in previous years, typically they would introduce some sort of new fossil Pokemon or some sort of new shiny for a fossil Pokemon, And because of that, players would get really excited to go out and play Pokemon Go in order to get that new shiny. And considering that fossil Pokemon are typically very rare within Pokemon Go, getting that new shiny would feel incredible because you would have a Pokemon that most other players probably would not have. It really did not feel that exciting to go out and play. You basically saw a bunch of spawns that you typically see to begin with, and then on top of that, there really wasn't anything new for you to go after, and I think that was a huge mistake. They really should have introduced something really cool with this year's Adventure Week, but it was a huge missed opportunity, and I think because of that, a lot of players were very frustrated and they were just overall very disappointed. I will say probably the only saving grace with this year's Adventure Week was of course the Team Go Rocket Takeover event, which was tied to it. And yeah, that did have a lot of hype behind it because of specifically the introduction of Shadow Conkeldurr, but outside of that, I don't even think that was something that generated a lot of hype that got a lot more players active during this Adventure Week. It was really sad to see because I feel like there was a lot of things Niantic could have done to make this year's Adventure Week a lot more special, but they just chose not to do so. I don't know if it's because of lazy developing, like a lot of the key developers have started to get very lax when it comes to designing Pokemon Go, or if it's because they lack the resources because, well, they had a whole bunch of layoffs last year, and because of that, I'm guessing they are lacking in a lot of staff to come up with some of these great ideas. So I really do not know what the case may be, but I do think Niantic needs to course correct because this year's Adventure Week was awful. It was basically probably the worst Adventure Week we've ever had, and it really goes to show just how far Niantic has sunk when it comes to the in-game events. I do predict that with future in-game events, they're also going to be pretty low quality. I mean, it just seems to be the case with in-game events as of late. Either the spawns are lackluster, or the bonuses are lackluster, or Niantic relies very heavily on in-app purchases, like special research tickets and whatnot. So yeah, it's just really disappointing, and I'm really concerned with the state of Pokemon Go. I mean, yeah, Pokemon Go Fest was really good this year, Go Tour was really good this year, but it's really the in-game events that carries Pokemon Go. It's what drives the daily engagement. And if Niantic is failing in this area, well, it's going to spell disaster for Pokemon Go as a whole. So yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to share my thoughts regarding this past Adventure Week, but what are you thinking regarding this event? Did you think it was a huge disappointment, or did you actually enjoy it? Definitely share why in the comments, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that notification bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And real quick, let me give a shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel and pick up some nice perks, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon, a link to which is in the description below. And if you become a paid Patreon member, you get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list, and you could also send me personalized DMs or questions for me to answer. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, make sure you go and check out my Patreon, the link to which is in the description below. And if you want to support my channel in a different way, you could do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. And that's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.